Hey guys, welcome to The Drop. I'm Neha.
I'm Haleema.
I'm Maha.
And today we're going to be talking about ITV's latest drama, Beecham House. So Maha, tell us, what is it about?
Beecham House is about John Beecham, who resigned from the East India Company, and he decides to have a fresh start in Delhi. But there is a mystery behind this.
Right. And now critics online have said that this drama essentially pushes 21st century values into an 18th century setting of Delhi before the British rule. Do you agree with that? Did you like this episode?
No, I didn't like the episode at all. I think it was bad acting, lazy writing, pushing a lot of stereotypes, and the characters were quite two-dimensional. It was just a bit of a dud for me.
Haleema, we were mentioning that she had a huge budget, and she just sort of, I mean, it kind of went to waste because
By she, we're talking about
Gurinder,
yes, the director and the writer.
Absolutely, and I think that it did go to waste because so much more could have been done and depicted in this drama, right?
So, Beecham House was set in Delhi before the British rule. Do you think, as a British show showing us Indian history, was the portrayal authentic?
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, yes. They actually shot some scenes, I believe, in Jaipur or yes. And so the houses in them were authentic. Also, the characters, what I found striking was that, English is not our first language. And so for some of the actors, the Indian actors, to have that accent, that slightly, that Indian accent when they were speaking English, I really liked that. I really did. Yeah.
Would you agree?
I would completely disagree with Maha. I think the India they showed is the India that only exists in Hollywood movies. It was like a Pixar version of India, like after every 2-3 scenes, you would see an elephant being trumpeted around. Sort of to remind you, oh, this is 18th century India, in case you forgot. I thought...
I mean, the leading actor certainly was dressed like Indiana Jones, wasn't he?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Wearing a leather jacket in the Delhi sun. I wouldn't recommend it.
That really confused me. I really don't think that was what everyday life was like. I really think with the big budget that Gurinder Chadha had and the sort of influence she has, she could have just hired Indian extras. She could have hired Indian consultants who could guide her about
the authenticity of
who could help her portray a more accurate depiction of India.
Certainly. So, do you think the story is feeding into the idea of white honourable man comes to save India, or do you think it's not going to be as stereotypical as that?
I think it's quite similar to Heart of Darkness, where it's seen from a white person's perspective. And for it to be more real, I think they should have shown it from someone who was actually Indian. That's what I feel.
Yeah, I really feel like the show is pushing a very stereotypical white savior narrative. The Indians you see in the show, they're very two-dimensional. They're very flat characters. The servants are just put in for like comic effect. They're shown as just gossipy. And
they're in awe of this white man who's come into their house.
And throughout the episode, I think if you had $1 for every time John Beecham was sort of preaching his own self-righteousness.
Oh, yeah, I'm very honourable.
I'm not a pillager. I'm here for fair trade.
I'm not like my countrymen.
I'm not like my countrymen.
Yeah.
He says it again and again, and you're sort of wondering why.
Yeah, it's sort of like hammering this idea into your audience that, oh, this is the good
guy.
Guy.
But if you, I was watching Gurinder Chadha's press conference, and she kept saying herself that this is for the international audience. It's for the global audience. And if that was her aim, maybe she hit the right notes, but I think even the international audience, I think they want to see a show like Chernobyl. Even though not every show can, depict those nuances so accurately, but
they can at least try.
They can at least try. Yeah. I think they weren't even trying with this show.
I mean, we've just seen the first episode. For all we know, it's going to,
5 more
blow us
left,
away
so
in the next few. Yeah. So
I do feel though that it was stereotypical because they portrayed India in a more sort of Bollywood manner. Like there were scenes where they were dancing, and I don't think that was like what would
I mean, the West certainly seems to think that that's all.
It's all about Bollywood dances.
Yeah, right. I really think that they wanted to give the audiences what they wanted to see. This is the Western perception of India,
Certainly.
The singing, the dancing, the elephants, the costumes, but everything else was quite flat.
Yeah, I mean, and speaking of flat, I have to bring in the dialogue here. For me, the one thing that didn't work was that the writing felt forced. So that when the characters were talking, for me, it wasn't
very
the characters
scripted.
It felt scripted. It didn't feel like to me, it didn't feel like something that people would be, sitting and talking about. And certainly
it didn't flow naturally, basically.
Yeah, which is a disappointment, because I've been such a huge fan of Bend It Like Beckham, which was one of Gurinder Chadha's one of like her most
greatest
famous
works,
one of her best films, and it was such a cult classic. So for her to go so horribly wrong on her passion project,
and that too, she is British Indian.
She is British Indian.
So you think that she'd bring a perspective that's okay for both the British and the Indian people? She'd do it justice, which I still think that she might. I mean, there's still 5 more episodes to go. And that's all for today. We'll be back with a new episode very soon. You're watching The Drop.